Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Poker Blog. Over the next few months, I hope to record my poker journey in the New England area and beyond. This time, I have a few hands from Encore Boston Harbor. Hope you enjoy, and let's get into it. It doesn't take very long at all before I get involved. Only a few hands in, we have a limper from UTG, and we look down the beautiful pocket queens in +2. The most comfortable open size against the Encore 1-3 is 12. So we make it 15 with one limper. We get the button and the limper to call. I immediately bank the flop as it came Queen 6-4 with 2 diamonds, giving me the absolute nuts. Flopping sets are always exciting and lower stakes because they're always pretty likely to get paid off by random hands. This is why when it checks to me, I c-bet 20 to get called by any pair, flush draw, straight draw, high card, or anything that these opponents can be showing up with. The button folds, and the limper folds. Forget what I said about getting paid with the sets. Still, we take down a pretty nice pot. About 50 minutes go by, we're gone card dead. When we're card dead, our opening ranges eventually loosen up a bit. So when we pick up the King 9 of spades, UTG, we decide to VPip this marginal hand. We get stationed by the hijack with the young kid, and the big blind looks like an OMC. The flop was Jack A4, 2 diamonds and 1 spade, giving us a bunch of backdoors, I guess. It checks to me, and not wanting to give up, I c-bet 15 with plans to barrel a lot of turns that either improves our hand or is good for our range. And of course, when I have absolutely nothing, both opponents call. Turn comes the 9 of hearts, giving us some showdown value. Checks to me again, and thinking that there's a sliver of chance my second pair could be good against 2 players. I check, and button checks back. The river pairs to the top card with a jack of hearts. Now, I really feel like my hand could be good here. The OMC leads out for 30. Although rivers are normally under bluffed in 1-3 and OMC is normally under bluff, and I have 1% behind so that he's even less likely to bluff, I felt like my hand was one of the best pairs on the board behind over pairs and ace-9 is too pretty to fold. So being the station I am, I tossed in a 30 for the call. This is when something unexpected happened. The young kid now almost clicks it and raises to 80. This line is super strange and doesn't really make much sense. I was contemplating whether this could be a weird bluff since the kid is definitely capable of that. However, my contemplation was quickly interrupted as the OMC calls. No more decisions for me, I snaffle the 9 face up. The kid shakes his head and tables. Pocket deuces, who he called with 1% behind on the flop. So we would have beaten him. But we definitely would not have beaten the OMC as he tables the remaining 2 9s for the turn set and river both that he just called a raise with. Wow. Please keep doing this and make the minimum. Players like you saves me a lot of money. Still, that hand stinks a bit and we need revenge. We get the opportunity of revenge only a few hands later when our friend Yang opens UTG to 10 and there are 4 people who call behind. When we're next stack in the cup with ace-9 off. I've been playing pretty tight and I decided it's time to cash in on the image by squeezing to 70. My hand blocks aces, and I thought there's a good chance that if I get through Yang, everyone else will fold. Even if I get called, I can navigate post-flop against a double flattening range, which should be extremely capped to mostly medium pocket pairs or some non-nuts Broadway combinations. To my great relief, Yang folds quickly, and one by one, everyone folds until the middle-aged Asian guy to my right, who starts looking at me. In my mind, I thought he's just putting on a show as a result of being annoyed at my squeeze. So I didn't pay much attention to him. However, he does what I didn't plan for. He back jams something for about 450. Now this is a pretty brutal situation. Against the white OMC, this is almost certainly aces or kings. However, people like him could certainly be trying to pull a move on me. I think his range here is mostly medium to large pocket pairs and some ace-x or king-x combos. However, the annoying thing is my kicker 9, which could easily be behind pocket 9s, 10s, jacks, or even ace-10, ace-jack, ace-queen. He plays it this way. Against those hands, I have only around 30% equity, which does not justify a call. If there any chance he's doing this with a random air, I have no particular read suggesting this. And when I don't have reads, it's safer to assume that my opponent actually has it. I reluctantly fold and never found out what the opponent had. Immediately after the hand, I get called to the 2-5 game, which I didn't record. We come back to the 1-3 a few days later, once again after feeling worn out writing proofs about LCA algorithms correctness. After having a decent winning at the previous table, we had a table change and started recording. The dealer once again greets us with an absolute premium the very first hand. Folds me on the low jack and appeal 8-7 suited. Suited connectors are undefeatable, or so some people say. Let's test that out by raising to 12. We get 4 stations, so go to the flop multi-ways, being third to act was a hand that should be playing pretty well post-flop. Well, flop came king a5, 2 spades. Fake. Suited connectors are indeed undefeatable. And checks to me, and in the moment, I decided to play this hand as a check raise multi-way. My hand has a lot of equity against any individual hand, and if I can check raise and thin down the field, that would be great. The hijack does not disappoint, and he bets 25, reopening the action. What's even more exciting, that small blind and big blind both calls. No more cheap poker, make it 125 to go. Hijack folds, and so does the small blind and big blind. That's a surprising outcome, but I'm not complaining when I take down a pot with what's currently just middle pair bad kicker. And the hands just keep coming as we pick up pocket fives on the big blind. There are a couple of blimpers to the small blind, who makes it 18. Absolute sizings are sometimes a tell in lower stakes, and this player doesn't seem like someone who balances. Already, I'm feeling a bit uneasy about this. However, I'm still getting a great price at the semi, so I call my pocket fives with so many people behind. We get 2 more callers because it's just $15, right? And who want to fold for $15 more? The flop came 7-7-4 rainbow, so we missed our set, but we have a quote-unquote overpair. Small blind leads out for 40. Although I doubt he's bluffing to 4 other people on this board and don't really beat any of his value, I thought a lot of his Broadway cards could be missing, and he's just firing out a C-bet. And being the station I am, I call, and the 2 limpers fold. The turn was offsuit jack, so that's a pretty bad card for us. However, he slows down and checks. Maybe he does have something like ace king, ace queen, or king queen. No need to bet, we check a bet for our showdown value. The river came a queen, so a lot of his flop bluffs are now ahead, meaning that we basically don't beat anything at all, other than ace king, I guess. And on this card, he bets out pretty big for 75. Now, could he be doing this with ace king? Unlikely that a player in 1-3 will barrel 2 streets, especially the river, with what could be perceived as having showdown value. Does he have any other random bluffs? Not likely, given that he raised pre-flop. So the only pairs that he'll play this way are probably aces, kings, and queens. So how am I ever good here? Well, as I tanked, I somehow gradually talked myself into how he could have a decent number of ace king compared to over pairs, and by giving a good price to call, right? So I sigh, feeling that I might regret it, thinking back to the time when I correctly hero called a 2K pot with the ace king high and 5-10, and I tossed in the 3 greens. Immediately, I get absolutely punished for a fishy place as the opponent tables pocket aces. What a surprise. I give him a nice hand pat and tosses my 5s into the muck. That was a punt. We've been working on our mindsets and tried my best to not let that hand get in the way of my plays going forward. Still, we need revenge. And what better way to have revenge than pick up a big hand pre-flop ourselves? In this one, there are a couple of limpers to me on the small blind, where I looked down at the best hand ever created in poker. Pocket aces. Wait, we make a disciplined 8 now. And the run back continues for a bit more than 30 minutes until we finally get involved again. Here we have a +1 limp, and it folds all the way, surprising, to the small blind, who has recently been replaced by a different guy. He makes it 25 once again. With the memories of the 5s hand still somewhat fresh in my mind, alarm bells are already sounding in my head for such a big size. I tell myself to proceed very cautiously before peeling my hand and see pocket aces. This time the real ones. And immediately, I can't hear anything except the sound of his chips being pushed into my stack. It'd be incredibly OMC to slow play this pre-flop, so I race to 75 in position. The limper folds, and I'm praying for some action. This time, the small blind gives it to us, and he announces, there's no sweeter feeling than this. I snap call, and he tables pocket jacks. I suppose there's truly no right way to play jiggities. We're an 81% favorite to win the scores race. For the cards I've dealt, some people on the table are talking about the possibility of a bappy jackpot.
Come on, ace, ace, jack, jack. Let's go.
The flop comes, ace, jack, high. Incredible. At least now we know we wouldn't have gotten it in on the flop regardless. Not only is the opponent drawing to about 5%, the table also has a runner draw to the jack high bappy jackpot, which is almost 50k combined. The turn was a 6, so all hopes for the bappy jackpot was gone. Still, now we only need to fade 2%. The river was clean. Bing bong. We win a massive pot in a cooler situation and stacked this guy who arrived just a few minutes ago. Welcome to the table, my friend. That was brutal. We became card dead for a bit more before finally, where there's a limper and open to 15, when we looked at our own jiggities. Time to try to not run into aces ourselves. However, before I could put out a raise, I noticed something very strange. The button player did not have any cards in front of him. Soon, the rest of the table asked him if he's okay with the hand playing out, and I was hoping against hope that he agrees. And of course, there's no such luck because the button demands a redeal, and we played our jiggities in the most unusual way possible. There's really no right way to play this hand, huh? At least we didn't get stacked, right? We need to get rewarded after the roller coaster of an experience. And only 2 hands later, we pick up a premium ace-10 offsuit on the hijack. We raise over an early position limp, and we get 2 stations behind us. The flop came king, jack, 8, 2 hearts, and we did not have a heart. I checked multi-way with not much going on for us, and it checks all the way to the button, and he bets 20. Big blind folds, and now it's back onto us. Once again, I've been playing really tight, as long as you don't remember the pocket 5s hand, and this board should favor my range a bit. I decided to put on the pressure and check raises to 55, even though I'm not holding any heart for block backdoor. And the opponent quickly calls. Shoot. However, there's no need to worry, as the turn came to offsuit queen, so now we bing bong our way from ace high into the absolute nuts. And no, I'm not sure what you mean by a redraw. This isn't that game. I could certainly bet here, but I decided I want to protect my check raising range by checking this time. To my delight, the opponent bets almost pot to the tune of 150. I feel like this is such an underbluff spot where my opponent almost certainly has something strong. There are a lot of river cards that could kill the action or make me behind. If he has 2 pair, a set, or even a pair plus enough flush draw, which I unblock, he's not going anywhere, right? I saw that he has about 400 behind, and I announced
All in.
However, the opponent snap folds, so maybe he was actually just bluffing. Or he so read me and hero folded one of the aforementioned hands I was targeting. Either way, I win a nicely sized pot. Now we're rising in the 2-5 waitlist, and we're to the top of the list as we pick up for the second time. Pocket aces on the low jack. We make it 12. Only the cutoff and the big blind calls. The flop seems mostly harmless, and it came queen 10 deuce rainbow. So now we're really only losing to queen 10 deuces, some 10s, since 1-3 people often don't 3-bet those, and occasionally queens that didn't 3-bet for some reason. Not gonna solo play my strong hand multi-way on this board when I unblock all the calling ranges. I throw out a C-bet of 15. However, the button quickly reminds me that I can never know what to expect, and he clicks it to 30. The big blind folds, and now it's back onto me. So obviously I'm never folding in this spot. I could raise this, but I feel like there isn't really that many draws on the board except for some straight draws. And I doubt I beat much value he's doing this with, since we're playing 1-3. So I call it a turn. The turn was a 5 of spades, so it brings in the backdoor spades draw. And probably not a straight draw since he shouldn't have 4-3 ace 3 or ace 4 here, but who knows. So I check it back to him, and he fires out for 40. I just call for pot control and to keep his bluffs in. The river was a 4 of clubs, so unless he had ace 3 or 3-6, all of the major draws missed. I checked him, hoping to induce a bluff, but unfortunately, he snap checked back and tables ace 10. And he has a very weirdly played middle pair. I showed him that I had him under 10% pre-flop, and we win our last 1-3 pot of the day before getting called to play 2-5. 2 days later, we came back on a Thursday when there's about 30 people on the 1-3 waitlist. Somehow, there's a C on 2-5 which opened up, and I joined the table there. Immediately, I noticed that their table is very limp heavy, and I identified 2 people who limps almost every hand. Things are painting a target on your backs, guys. You must be punished. The punishment starts when we're on the cutoff. 2 people limps to the maniac in seat 1, and he makes it 25. For maniacs who limp 100% of the range, their opening ranges might not always be that weak. Still, my 2 hand is too strong to just call and let the stations behind me get in for a multi-way pot with suited connectors, pocket pairs, off-suited connectors, broadways, or whatever they're limp calling with. I want to make a heads up, and I dominate a lot of hands the guy could be raising with. So I make it 75, and now folds all the way around back to this guy, who decides to push his entire stack into the middle for 205 total. Now this is an annoying spot. Any 4-bet or above from a non-good player in lower stakes should be taken very seriously. I vividly remember the time when I played 5-10 against the maniac who deep 100%, and had kings in that hand and got in all in within pre-flop in a 5-bet pot and lost 3.5k pot against aces. Still, I've already invested 75 and only need to call 130 to win a total of 400, almost giving me the odds to call against hands that dominate me, except kings or aces. And if he has kings or aces, it is just a cooler, right? Plus, I don't have decent equity against all of his middling pairs or whatever he could be doing this with. Plus, I have outs even against kings or aces since my hand is suited. I don't tank for too long before making the call. The flop was king 8-4, so now we fit top pair and are ahead of most hands except aces, kings, ace king, 8s, or 4s, or king 8 or king 4 if he has those. Turn seems pretty safe as it came to 3, and the river was offsuit 10. He says 1 pair and tables 2 black cards with a lot of symbols on it, so they're either 9 or 10. Seeing that the river 10 was black, I knew I had the winner against what I assumed was pocket 9s. But upon closer inspection, however, I noticed that he shoved on me with 10-9 offsuit and was in terrible shape pre-flop. Wow, what a table. I feel so at home now. The C1 maniac rebuys for 500 and continues to pile money into the middle at a frequency that's a statistical anomaly. It doesn't take long before I pick up another hand. This one, it lives 6 way to me on the big blind, and look down at the beautiful ace-jack offsuit. Only OMC will check this back, so I open squeeze to 50. I got the other maniac in the cutoff to call, and the small blind to come along. The flop was king 7 rainbow, so we have ace high multi-way, so we basically have nothing. At least the board favors my range, so I could bluff at it, right? However, before I could see that, the small blind donks down into me for 50. Now this looks suspiciously like one of those let me see where I'm at bets. Usually this is something like a pair of 7s or maybe a pocket pair above a 7, which doesn't want to give away a free card multi-way. So I'm almost never seeing trips play this way in particular. Well, if he wants to see where he's at, I'm going to tell him. And more specifically, I'm going to tell him that his pair is no good by racing to 150. Cut off snap folds. Back onto the small blind who looks pretty miserable. He does the finger dance with his cards, and he eventually lets it go. I asked him if he beats trips with good kicker, and he said he just has a pair and doesn't. I told him it was a good fold. What I didn't tell him though was that it was a good fold for me. A few hands later, there are 3 people who limps to us on the button, and we pick up the king 10 of spades. I make it 35. Only the cutoff maniac calls. Flop was pretty good. It was king 5-4 with 2 diamonds. Definitely a flop that favors my range. However, I thought that this flop doesn't really connect well with the opponent's range. So if he missed, he might try to bluff me off in the next two streets, but he's not going to call any bets. Plus, I'm not very worried about protecting my pair of kings. So I checked and conceal my hand string, throws another 5. So now we're behind all his 5x combos now. The opponent takes the bait, and he bets 60 into me. I Hollywood for a bit before putting it in the call. The river was a 9, so every single draw bricked. The opponent doesn't disappoint, and he bets 150 into me. No point to raise and no need to Hollywood anymore. I snap call. The opponent immediately begins shaking his head. I asked him what he has, and he says I'm probably good. I save the EV of the tables on face by tabling my top pair, and he mucks. We drag in a sizable pot. Next, we go card dead for a bit, as each maniac fires for one more $500 bullet. Our patience finally gets rewarded as we pick up ace jack suited and +2. We make it 20, and we get 4 people to station us, including both maniacs, because why not? This is gonna be a big one. The flop came 7-5-3 rainbow with 1 spade, so we have absolutely nothing. Checks me, I check, out to the first maniac, who throws out a bet of 50, and the second one calls. It's now on to me. Now these people have been firing non-stop into the pot, no matter whether they have it or not, and they really don't have to have much in this spot. So they could definitely have a flop straight set 2 pair, but they could have all the gutters or open-enders, 1 pair or a complete air. This is especially true for the guy who just called, who might just have a straight draw of some kind. I'm the one who has the most and strongest over pairs in my range, and there's a lot of good turn cards for me to shove on. They'll make them really miserable if they call. So it's now time to cash in on my image, as I check raise to 225, expecting this to work a decent amount of the time. However, my dream of taking down the pot uncontested soon turns into a living nightmare, as the bettor instant shoves to about 650. And before I have time to calculate the pot outs even, the guy who calls the 50 says, I just want to go home, and snap calls for 475. This is an absolute disaster. I need to put in slightly more than 400 to win a total of 1800. However, I now really don't believe I'm up against 2 players who have 1 pair or less. It's likely that I'll need to hit runner trips or 2 pair, or I could be drawing dead to the backdoor nut flush draw. Feeling a lot of pain, I fold, but at least I get to sweat the run out as they're both all in. For the dealer compel the remaining 2 cards, the original bettor tables 7-6 off for top pair in the gutter, like he committed with, and the caller tables 4 deuce off for the low end open ender. Wow, this is epic. I could feel retroactively relieved since I would have only had 13% equity against both ranges as my ace outs were dead. But in general, wow, I should just call in with any overpairs here. Turn came the ace of clubs, so I would have hit top pair and it gives the caller straights. The river was the brick ace of hearts. So 4 deuce sucks out against 7-6 for a massive double up. I guess he really did want to go home, huh? Anyway, he's not going home now, which is good for me. 10 minutes later, it is now vengeance o'clock. UCJ plus 1 opens to 50 and gets 2 callers. The 4 deuce off guy raises to 60 and appeal pocket aces next to act. Trying very hard to conceal my excitement, I raise to 180. Folds to the 3-better, who now tells me that
I want to see if you have aces.
well, you're pretty often wrong since aces is not the only hand in my cold 4-betting range. It's not even a majority in my cold 4-betting range. Still, you're right. The opponent tanks and eventually makes the call. The flop was pretty clean, it became 8-3 deuce. So now I'm only worried about 8s at this point. He checks me and throws a c-bet of 100 as I'll do with my entire range on this board. He does not look very happy, but he calls. Turn looks pretty clean. It was the offsuit 7. So nothing really gets there. And he checks me again. So right now, I think his range contains some sets, but mostly pairs between 9s and queens, or even pocket kings that he didn't 5-bet shove with. and occasionally flip draws, as I don't block those. Against all of his hands, it makes more sense to get value on this street before a heart or an overcard comes down the river. Even if I get called and he banks the river, I could potentially get a cheap showdown in position if he doesn't donk. Which so I bet 300, and the opponent is now deep in the tank. Table is pretty fun, so I attempt some pretty ambitious speech play against the opponent.
I'm gonna hit a flush on the river.
What?
I'll hit a flush on the river, don't worry.
The opponent hems the halls, asks me for a count, and repeatedly mentions that he thinks I have aces. At first, I was slightly worried that he's Hollywooding and running into a set, but as time goes on, I'm more and more confident and begging for a call. Finally, he says that he has an overpair to the board and folds. Wow, good fold, sir. You save yourself a lot of money. Also, I am not a nit. The end of the session draws close, and I loosen up a bit by raising deuces in low jack after it folds to me. I get 3 stations, so now I'm praying for a set. The flop came bing bong, ace king deuce rainbow. We bink our sets. But there's one problem, is that the board is pretty scary for a lot of my opponent's ranges. Still, I unblock all aces and kings and decide to bet instead of check raise this time. I fire out for 25 like I would with plenty of value and bluff. Hijack folds. Still 2 more to go. Come on. Button folds. Damn it. Please have top pair, big blind. Nope. He folds 2. We make the absolute minimum with a set that we don't deserve against people who need to be expelled from the origami classes. The night is coming to an end, and rack up a good win before returning to the world of bounding the probability of graphs being connected. And that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.